All right, excited to have on today's guest for the Breakaway, Jared Timmer. Jared, man, I mean, I've met you. We've talked a couple different times, but thanks for coming on the podcast. You said you've listened before, so you at least know a little bit what to expect, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
Okay.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's been a good start to the year for you, obviously. We'll get to that in a second, but I want to talk a little bit more, just kind of get to know you a little bit. You going and looking at everything, the first thing obviously jumps out is played for Reno in 2020. You know, obviously that was a former rival of ours. What was it like? Obviously, that was a COVID year. What was it like playing against Sacramento, and what do you remember about that year?
Yeah, I mean, playing against Sacramento, we honestly didn't like playing against you guys.
That's fair.
It was like a gritty group that you guys had, and we wanted to like have the ball and play, and I felt like you guys wanted to do the same type of thing. Mm-hmm. So it was always a good matchup, and it was always a battle, especially coming out here. It was tough, but yeah, we had a tough time.
Well, but that year though, you played the same team 4 times, right? Because they were in that pods,
right?
So you get to know each other really, really well compared to a normal season, right? So what do you remember from like game 1, game 2 to like 3 and 4? How much you guys would make changes and things?
Yeah, honestly, so like the Reno style that we had was a pretty like full on press,
right?
And when I was back there, I was like isolated a lot, and I just remember like playing against, I think it was like Bijev back then, mm-hmm. and I think Carlton Belmar mm-hmm. was there, and it was just like guys that were tricky and could hold up the ball really well. So I was just trying to make sure that I kept my distance a little bit, but was still like close enough where I could put in a tackle. From game to game, it was that Reno team that we had. We didn't change much of how we were going to go into the game, so it was just always like a tough battle. And
well, what were your expectations when you signed here, knowing or thinking before you signed, like, hey, I've played in Sacramento, I played against Sacramento. There weren't fans at those games, but what was your kind of your expectations coming in?
Yeah, it made a difference, like when there wasn't fans. Like there was that loss of intensity that you could kind of like have from the fan base. So I didn't really have that huge expectation of the fan base. When I came out here and saw it for the first time and felt it like firsthand, there was definitely that intensity of the fans, and you wanted to go out there and perform for them. So yeah, I didn't really have that initial like idea of how it was, but when I came out here, it was awesome.
What obviously Reno folded at the end of 2020. What was that like for you to go through, personally, hearing about all the news, realizing like, oh, I got to go figure out what's next? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, no, that was a wild process. I mean, I remember planning on being back in Reno the following year. I got a text from my agent even before I think our like kind of that staff mm-hmm. let us all know, and was like, hey, like, don't worry, like, we're going to figure this out. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about?
Right.
And then, the news broke, team folded, and it was a bit of a scramble for a lot of those guys on the team, just trying to figure out where we're going to end up. And landed in Indy. It was close to like where I went to school, where I grew up. And at the time felt like a good fit, but I'm now happy to be out here and be playing.
It's probably felt a little bit like Reno weather-wise recently, but finally we've gotten some sun, so hopefully you're starting to see a little bit of a difference.
Yeah. I mean, when I like signed here, I was like telling everyone like, oh, I'm so excited to get out to California, be in the sun, and then it rained for like 3 months straight. And I was like,
unreal.
What just happened?
I've heard like different, obviously, players from our team talk about it. I've heard like Kings players say the same thing, like, oh, I'm going to Sacramento, I'm going to California, and then just like, it's unprecedented. Anyway, but I want to ask about the start of the season, kind of how you guys have gelled, specifically defensively. You've given up 1 goal in 5 games, which is incredible. I mean, it seems like you guys are pretty locked in. You play against San Antonio, a very tough team. I would imagine as a center back, right, they do loft a lot of long balls over the top, and you guys have to be on it. And I said before we started, I thought you guys played so well. Obviously, didn't allow any goals, but just they really didn't have many to any chances. The best chance there was a strike from outside the box. So what was how do you feel like you guys are kind of coming together as a back three?
Yeah, the whole back line, we've really gelled together throughout the whole process, preseason and into it. We're a close group. But overall as a team, like, we defend really well together. We press well, which makes them turn it over, and then we're on our front foot and attacking them. And then when we get into like a lower block, we're just tough to break down. Connor reads the game really well back there. Shane's an animal, one-on-one defending, and good in the air. And then, you got Jack and Dami that can help defensively too. And say if we're shifting out wide right, Dami's coming in on the left back spot and protecting Shane. And we've just been communicating really well, and it's something that Mark's really emphasized for us, is just to have that communication. Mm-hmm. And then we got Danny back there that's obviously yelling at us and telling us where to go and where to be. So we've really gelled and communicated really well together throughout the whole year.
It seems like from a head coach perspective, the one thing you'd want to have working well in the beginning of the season is just the back line, the defense, and that has been absolutely the case. Yeah. It seems like it's been an emphasis. The defensive midfielders have been so good as well at making tackles, making your guys' job easier at times. Yeah. But what is different about this group that you just mentioned than maybe what you've seen before? And I guess what makes it different than what you've seen?
I think it's like defending as a group. You really feel like you have each other's back. If Connor steps in and maybe gets turned, he knows that I'm covering in behind him. Mm-hmm. If Shane's going in and stepping, he knows that Connor's got him behind him. And it's just something that, like, we're all defending and, wanting to go out there and perform for each other. Mm-hmm. And I think in years past, I've experienced more of like an individual type of performance where guys are like, I'm going to go and do me, and I'm going to lock down my spot type thing. But we go out there and we have each other's back, and we're looking out for each other. And it's something that it shows on the score sheet, where, we have only let in 1 goal in the regular season. And we're going to hopefully get more clean sheets throughout.
Right. What do you guys have, like, a bet between you center backs, like who's going to get the first goal?
No, I stay back on corners, so it's
that's unfair to you,
there's
man.
a bet, I'm going to have a ball get knocked out, and then I'm going to have to shoot from like 25, 30 yards, but I'm probably going to get yelled at because that's going to hit the top net, might not go in. So
no, there's no talk about it or anything.
No,
okay.
No.
I wasn't sure. What about being around the city so far? I know you mentioned it's been raining a lot. Obviously, hopefully it's getting – weather seems like it's coming around. But what have you got to experience Sacramento-wise?
Yeah, I've been down here for the Saturday Farmers Market.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Like to get out there and walk around and see different things. Just been hitting up some restaurants like coffee. So I've been to like Temple, Old Soul, some spots like that, and I've enjoyed that in like an afternoon when the weather is nice, or even if it's not, you can stay inside if it's raining.
Seems like there's a lot of guys on the team that are big coffee drinkers, like to try different spots.
Yeah.
Danny's a maniac with coffee, but
crazy. Game days, I'm like, is this like your 5th coffee? Like, you need to relax.
Well, and is it like a Zen thing, or is he just psyched from it? I guess that's what I don't quite understand.
I don't know. It's just maybe like a routine he's got going on.
I'm glad we're talking about this. Do you think, though, as a goalkeeper, and I've wanted to ask him this, because you have to be locked in, right? Because there are times I think if I would fall asleep occasionally. Right. Yeah. So I think you almost have to be so wired. So even if the ball's on the other side of the field and all of a sudden the counter attacks come in, you are dialed in, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And he's been on it. I mean, we haven't had to let in like too many shots on him, so he hasn't had to do a lot. But when he has been called on, he's made the saves. Like he just got nominated for Save of the Week this past week against San Antonio, and that was one where I felt like he was ready to go and ready for it.
I heard he saved a PK in training yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, these guys take PKs. I'm not the one to go and take a PK, I'll tell you that. But when they do and he saves it, he lets everyone know.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, fair. He should, right?
And he's unbelievable. He's probably the best goalkeeper I've seen at like saving PKs.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. There's a couple new guys on the team this year. Obviously, you being one of them. I wanted to ask about Shane because when he comes on the podcast, we're going to have a very uncomfortable conversation that I don't think he's excited about.
What is that about?
And that is the lookalike that he has.
Oh, yeah.
From the character from you,
yes.
Which I think we talked about at times. I think I mentioned it at that maybe it was media day. I talked to him about it. I don't know if he's a huge fan of it, but I feel like come on, man, I got to bring it up, right?
Yeah, I think you definitely should. It just because of his personality in the show, it's like not a good look for him. Obviously, like I think the guy's like a fairly good-looking guy,
I think
so
it's
like
it's
a good-looking compliment type thing. But he is a
serial killer.
Yeah, he's a serial killer, so you probably don't want that, being tossed around too much.
Listen, it's not it has nothing to do with the person. It's the actor.
Right. Yes.
Shane, when you listen to this, if you do listen to this, or when it's an actor thing, man.
Right.
It's an actor thing.
For sure.
I want to ask about Coach Briggs, and like you mentioned his emphasis on the back line, and early on in the season and how you guys have been playing. So, like, what is his communication coming into the season, like even from preseason on, to make sure you guys are as dialed in as you have been?
Yeah, he's really done a good job of like installing confidence in us each as like our own player, to just go out there and be able to use our strengths out on the field. And that's given me something where I haven't really felt that recently from like a coaching staff, going into the game and being like, hey, this is what we want you to do, and we believe in you to do that. And I think it shows on the field. Like we go out there and we play with confidence. We play on the front foot and we attack teams. So he's done a really good job of just having that, almost kind of like having our back, where we have, you know, each other's back on the field. He believes in us and gives us that confidence to go out there and perform.
What about systematically and like formationally? Is there, you know, 3 in the back has worked well for the clubs really since like mid-season last year. They made the change, and it's obviously worked out great. But how does it fit into your specific role in the way you kind of take a center back position well, or do you like it better than a 4 in the back system?
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to every system.
Sure.
Right. And I think the group that we have, it frees up Jack and Dami to get forward and utilize their strengths of getting in. For me, it helps me have a little bit more time on the ball where I can be able to pick out some passes. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, Coach wants me to do that. He wants me to find, you know, the attacking mid, if it's Roro or Russ or Sebastian's feet or whoever it is in kind of, or Keko in those pockets, and I can get them turned and they're attacking at the back line. And then a lot of times with like when we're going and pressing teams, we might be a little bit isolated at times, and he wants me to utilize some of my like strength of one-on-one defending and my speed back there to, you know, to pick off some passes and to be able to protect long balls over the top. So I think it helps me as a player in the back three, and I've enjoyed learning the system and continuing to grow through it.
What is it like celebrating? This is a completely separate question. Okay. What is it like celebrating goals as a defender when you're on the other side of the field?
Yeah, I mean, you got to run up there. I usually, honestly, run to the person that gets whoever like gives the assist, and I try to go to them first. I don't know, like if anyone's ever noticed that, but I'm like, if it's like a cross from like Jack and it goes to the back post and someone hits it in, I'm like running towards Jack, and then I have to like do another run across to where everyone's at. But scoring goals is difficult, so when it happens, you got to celebrate it.
Right. Even if it's a long run.
Even if it's a long run.
Right. Okay.
There's been a few times I've ran to the bench and gotten a drink and then went in with the guys to celebrate.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's smart, man. That is smart. I like that. So you mentioned earlier opening night, get a kind of a first taste of the crowd, of the atmosphere. Not a great official that night. I'm not going to let you say that. I'll say it. A hostile environment for them that night with the couple yellow cards. But what do you remember specifically? Like, did it catch you off guard about how good the crowds can be?
Yeah, it was an awesome environment to play in. It was, you know, the stadium was great. It was rocking. And then, when the adversity hit, we could definitely feel the crowd. And that gave us some energy in the second half to continue to push through. What
did Briggs say at halftime? Leave the expletives out.
Yeah, I mean, he told us, he's like, listen, we're going to kind of like stay in this like formation that we had, minus obviously one. And he's like, they're going to be exposed in certain areas, and we just have to take advantage of that when we go forward with it. And we did. Like they kind of like pushed their wingbacks high, or like their fullbacks high up the field. So when they were kind of building, once that turnover happened, we wanted to be able to get forward and kind of expose that when they're kind of too far forward. And that's we did off the goal. So,
and like you come into that game, you're coming from the Eastern Conference in Indy 11, right? Charleston was not a good team last year.
Right.
They get a new head coach. You're thinking, okay, this should be, 3 points theoretically. You go down 10 men. You're like, all right, we just got to salvage 1 point. You do that, and then you kind of take a step back and you look, and you're like, oh, Charleston's legit. I mean, you guys probably felt it that night, but from an outsider's perspective, you're thinking, oh man, this team. If you look at the Eastern Conference, and we can talk about that because I'm curious your thoughts. Like, it is way different than what we've seen. Louisville, Tampa Bay, typically at the top. Both those teams have had some struggles to start the season.
Yeah.
And I think Birmingham's in first place right now. Mm-hmm. Charleston is right up there as well. So what are your thoughts on like how the Eastern Conference has kind of changed, I guess, in this offseason?
Yeah, I know Coach Pierman that's now at
Charleston.
Charleston. He's a great coach. So going into the game, it was obviously super early in the season. So playing them last year, I was like, they weren't great. You know, one of the not best teams that we played against. Right. And then going into this game, I was like, I think they're going to be a completely different team. And they were. And they've done really, really well and showed. They just had another good win last night in Tampa.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're good. But the Eastern Conference is kind of up in the air, it seems like, at the moment.
Yeah.
Tampa isn't the normal Tampa of the past. Louisville seems to have started pretty slow. They always will get going, and they're going to get good, get their results. They're known for that. So they'll be good to go. But yeah, it seems like Birmingham and Charleston might be the two right now to watch out for.
It's pretty interesting. We got Detroit next Saturday, so that'll be a good match as well. Okay, quickly, and we'll talk about a couple other things. Is the teams we played so far? What like you face San Antonio? We got Colorado Saturday, San Diego. Those are really probably the top 4 teams in the Western Conference, obviously from last year. But it seems like those will be the top 4 going into this year.
Right.
What have you seen in terms of the competitiveness level and how tight those teams are in terms of who can win on any given night?
Yeah, it is. It's tight. I think once we've really grasped the idea that we can go out and we can beat anyone on any given night. Doesn't matter who it is, if it's San Diego, San Antonio, and we're starting to believe that. But those teams are on paper, yes, probably the top 3 or 4 teams that you'll see. But the thing for us now is to not let off the gas, is to keep going. It doesn't matter if it's Colorado this weekend, if it's Detroit the following weekend, if it's at Tulsa. We need to be ruthless and keep going really hard at it. So that's been the focus going into the next few weeks.
Gotcha. And then I want to ask a little bit about like coming up, growing up, playing soccer. Like, did you know early on playing youth soccer? Like, is this what you wanted to do, or was it something that you kind of just found out? And did you have a growth spurt that I didn't get to have, or like?
I mean, maybe a little bit. Yeah, probably. That was like middle school into high school, and my brother he'd probably punch me because he's a little bit shorter than me, and he wishes that he hit that growth spurt.
Yeah, we all do.
But. No, I grew up and I was playing basketball and soccer. I played basketball until I was a junior in high school, and loved it, enjoyed it. Broke my dad's heart when I quit, but
I'm sure he's okay with it now.
Yeah. And then I played for like club soccer. I never played in like the academy system growing up, which was kind of the unconventional way.
Sure.
But like I said, I was playing basketball at the time, and in academy they didn't allow you to play basketball. Through high school. So I wanted to keep doing that, enjoyed it. When I committed to Butler University, which is in Indianapolis, I kind of went there for 2 years and started to do really well and started to get a little bit of like notice. And that's when I was like, hey, maybe I could keep doing this afterwards. And just kept working hard at it, and thankfully, landed a spot afterwards.
It seems like this is not that this story is similar, but like I hear a lot of guys who I talk to and ask the same question who played in college. It seems like, I went to college, like didn't really know how good I was, and then you play well, you start getting confidence, and then that's when it clicks. Is that like kind of what you've seen as well from maybe other people?
Yeah, I think there's a handful of guys that it's like obviously it was like a dream of mine to play professional soccer, but you don't quite know. And I committed when I committed to Butler, it was. I chose the program for the coaching staff and like the business school, honestly. And I think there's a lot of guys that go there and maybe they start to learn a little bit more about who they are as a player and start to excel in that. And that's when they are like, hey, I can keep going at this. And sometimes it takes a little bit of like a, I don't know, kick in the pants to be like, hey, I was just playing club soccer before this and not taking it too serious, but now that I see that there's like a top level of these college soccer players and I can be in that and maybe I can go on afterwards, and they take it a little bit more seriously and commit a little bit more of their life to it, and that's when it starts to excel for them.
Definitely interesting. And I think, fans like to hear that perspective, kind of get to hear of what it was like. What do you like to do outside of soccer? Like what's your go-to?
So I've heard this podcast before, and I heard Dami talking a little bit about ping pong.
Yes.
So I wanted to bring that up when I was here.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah. So right now, just so you know, the scores, they play almost like every day.
Yeah.
Luis and Dami.
Yeah.
I'm up 4-3 on Luis and 5-3 on Dami.
Whoa.
On games. So I'm not saying I'm the best ping pong player in the team, but
I mean, listen.
But it's early. I'm the new guy, so I mean, early on I had to kind of break it in. Maybe they were playing easy on me.
Nope.
But I'm up on games right now.
Wow.
So I enjoy playing ping pong with the guys. I enjoy getting outside. I like to hike. I like, anything outdoors.
Blew my mind right there because
Yeah.
I was not ready for that.
Yeah.
Because when Dami said it, it was like there's nobody else.
Yeah. That's how he talks, though. I mean, that's how he is.
I know.
Yeah.
That's just
He
funny.
beat me today. I'll give him credit.
So
He beat me
guys,
today.
So how much do you guys all play? Like one person plays one person, like after training or before training? How does that work?
It kind of depends. Like, I mean, sometimes you go in early and you need to get some treatment done, and then you're done early with the treatment. And I mean, Luis and Dami play almost every day before training, before like we have like a meeting if we're doing video or whatever. They'll play. I play more after training, if before lunch or something like that. And if we're done with like a lift early or something.
Who else? Does anybody else play?
Russ is decent,
Oh.
but doesn't play too much. Arnold, he's okay. He doesn't really play much. Like, he doesn't play like competitively. Like, he'll go hit it around. That's really about it.
I feel like the guys got to get into doubles.
That'd be sweet.
Doubles would be unbelievable. We talked about doing some content around it. So now that you mentioned this, it's gonna.
Yeah, and there's a dartboard right now going on, and Jack, Matt, they're pretty good at darts. So
I feel like Lacrosse has been around a dartboard.
Yeah, yeah, he has. You could tell.
All right, I think at that note, we always got to get going. Dude, thank you so much. This was a pleasure. I appreciate you coming in and doing this. And big match this week in Colorado.
Yeah.
Good luck, man.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course, man. Thanks. Perfect, dude.
Rock on.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.